let's see. That and come on. Okay, and all right. So you just got to make sure things are set back up the way they were. You know how that goes. There we go. Good enough. All right. So, blue cards. Let's try and get through this kind of quick. Since this has already been about 2 hours or so just doing white. I do not want this taking 10 plus hours. Gen of the Lamp. Compare Mahamadi Gen. 2 blue plus 4 for 5/6 flyer. 2 blue plus 5 for 5/6 flyer. Literally the exact same size creature for 1 more mana. This made it to... Let's see here. This made it into... I think you'd be revised. You would be, I guess you'd be Summer Magic. You would be 4th edition. 4th and then 7th edition. Realistically. This would be somewhere in between. But realistically, unless you really need another Mahamadi Gen and you're willing to pay slightly more, don't bother. It literally does. It's literally Mahamadi Gen for an extra mana. Don't bother. Cloud Spirit. 3 mana for a 3/1 flyer that can only block flyers. Not terrible, and I think we covered this during Stronghold. You know, 3 power on a flying creature for 3 mana is fine. Especially since it got reprinted as common, it's usable. I think at this point you can probably get away with a 3/2 with that. I think you can get a 2/3 that can only block flyers. Hey, Holly. But 3 power on a flying creature for 3 mana is still pretty good. The first card though that I can think of that would be, oh damn, what do you call it? Horizon Drake. If you're looking for a 3/1 flyer, I would generally recommend this instead. Oh yeah, I did not do the thing. I would generally recommend this instead. 3 mana for a 3/1, not only with no drawback, but with a very occasionally relevant upside. protection from lands, you do occasionally get people running some kind of like some kind of creature land or whatever, like in their mana base. Like if you're playing black blue, you might have to worry about Restless Reef or Creeping Tar Pit or something of that nature. But those are creatures that are also lands. More true if you're playing against green. Not unlikely they'll turn around and say, hey, by the way, I have these lands. I'm going to attack you. Cool. Horizon Drake, block one, kill it. What? Kill your land. You get to play land destruction in blue. Yeah. Do not sleep on Horizon Drake. We'll cover that more, I'm sure, when we get to dealing with World Drake. That'll probably be a few months away. But still, Cloud Spirit it's still fine. And the one thing that Cloud Spirit has over Horizon Drake is its mana cost. It only requires a single blue to cast it, compared to Horizon Drake requiring 2 blue. Not, not the biggest deal, but occasionally relevant, especially if you're playing with multiple, if you're playing more than one color. Deep Sea Serpent. Remember what I said a moment ago about Jin of the Lamp being a worse Mahmadi Jin? This is pretty close to the opposite of Sea Serpent. The opposite direction of Sea Serpent. 1 blue plus 5 for 5/5. Can't attack unless defender controls an island. When you control no islands, sacrifice this creature. This gets rid of the, for a slightly harder cost, you're playing 2 blue plus 4 rather than 1 blue plus 5. But at 6 mana, that extra colored mana should not make a difference. Let's be honest here. You're paying 6 mana. Unless you're playing like 4 or 5 colors, you should be able to hit that second blue pip fairly easily. Same size creature, same attack restriction, but no sacrifice restriction. Which means, in theory, you could cast this off of completely blue non-island sources. Let me just pull up my yeah, I would say it's better than that, but yeah. So let me pull out my blue commons only deck for a moment. Ash Barrens will technically cast it. What have I got in here that are blue lands? So, Remote Isle. And of course the other cycling lands. Grixis Panorama taps for colorless mana. Takacious Dig Site taps for colorless mana. Lonely Sandbar is a non... it's an island that's not an island that has cycling. Cradle of the Accursed taps for colorless mana. Halimar Depths comes in play, tap to and comes in play. Look at the top 3 of your library, put them back in any order. Taps for blue. I'm not going to count the Mystic Sanctuary because it is an island. Desert of the Mindful is a cycling land that has the desert type. Skyline Cascade comes into play tapped. When it comes into play, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap next turn. Taps for blue. Crystal Grotto comes into play, scry 1, filters mana into blue. I didn't go through all my lands But these are basically the highlights of you know, of lands I have in my mono blue commons only deck that are not islands that can help you cast Deep Sea Serpent. And because it's Deep Sea Serpent and not just Sea Serpent, you don't have to worry about the sacrifice clause. If you play this, you want to make sure you can get through for the damage. If you're considering a card like this at all, especially if you're considering more than one, run Harbinger of the Seas. Just do yourself a favor and run the Harbinger. You're basically looking at the blue analog to Magus of the Moon. And now that I'm actually glancing at its flavor text, this is referencing Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon, which turn all non-basic lands into mountains. The rising moon calls mercilessly to the waves, commanding the sea to rise high enough to devour mountains. Yep, that's a thing. But yeah, if you're considering at all a card like Sea Serpent, run Deep Sea Serpent first. There's other cards that you should run ahead of that even. But definitely Deep Sea Serpent before the regular Sea Serpent. Cruel Fate. It's a shame this can only hit opponents. 5 mana sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of target opponent's library. Yoink! Put one in their graveyard and the rest on top of their library in any order. What's sillier is if you have... Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Do you know what... Okay. So, what else could be is... Sure. But if somebody ends up playing a card like Leyline of the Void, or even Planar Void would be fine in this context, or Rest in Peace. Oh, look, you think you're going to win in, a couple of turns from now. I'm going to take that Approach the Second Sun that's like third from the top now, and I'm going to put that in your graveyard. Which means it's going to get exiled. Oh, yeah. Have fun with that. That being said, there are times when you do this to actually keep in mind that just because they're your opponent doesn't necessarily mean they're your enemy. Well, what do I mean by that? TLDR. There are times when you may want to make plays just to make things easier on them. If they're getting a glut of mana, for example, you may want to turn around and put an upcoming land into their graveyard. Put whatever spells they've got on top, and then lands. So that at least they've got a feel, especially if it's something that allows them to shuffle somehow. Or search for something, a worldly tutor, for example. Anything of that line at all would definitely help. So, they may call it Cruel Fate. There are times you can use this to your opponent's advantage because you're like, I can tell you're not having a good game. Let's see if I can help let's see if I can find a way to use this to help you out somehow. So you don't have to be cruel with it. Cloud Dragon. This is a strictly worse Mahamadi. You lose out on 2 points of toughness and the ability to block stuff that's not flying. Play a Mahamadi instead. If you're playing illusions and dragons, there's better than that. No. Unless your entire theme of the deck is, only able to block flyers. At which point, maybe you decide to do something silly, like, was it, I think it's called Predator Flagship? Give a creature flying till end of turn? Cool, now I can block it. Or something weird like that. But unless you're doing something of that nature, no, there's better cards. Touch of Brilliance. As a sorcery, this is one less mana most of the time. That's not counting stuff that's come out in the last couple of years. Exactly. As an instant, you can generally find this for 4 mana. There's one card that is... No, it doesn't. Date greater than 2022. Mana value equals 3. What do you call it? Quick study. That's one I think I was thinking of. This is, yeah, like this is so much better. Game paper and sort by color. Yeah. Yeah, quick study's the card I was thinking of. Like, compare quick study to Touch of Brilliance. It's one less mana, and it's an instant. If you're looking for a strict draw 2, you play that first. You generally would be playing the other Council of the Soratomi, Divination, and similar effects. Or effects that say target player draws 2 cards. If you are looking to play this card, you must be having to go really deep down the rabbit hole to play draw 2s. Because I'll tell you right now, I have an entire deck whose entire premise is drawing cards. And Touch of Brilliance doesn't even make it. Because by the time I'm hitting 4 mana, I need a healthy sized body that can draw cards. When it comes into play, when it dies, whatever. Or at 3 mana, I have a not unreasonable chance of drawing 3 cards. What? What am I talking about? Mono blue, take me down to Cantrip City. Let's go to the visual spoiler. I'm going to skip the bodies. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that. Bulk draw. This is what I'm looking at. Secrets of the Golden City. 2 blue plus 1. Draw 2 as a sorcery. Draw 2 cards. If you have the city's blessing, which means 10 or more permanents in play, draw 3 instead. Theft of Dreams, 1 blue, 2 other. Sorcery. For each tap creature target opponent controls, draw a card. Really easy to draw 4, 5, 6 cards off of that. You know, just if I'm looking for a 3 mana spell to draw cards, never mind the fact that I got things like Third Pass Savant and Timora's Invoker where I can, later in the game I can pay 7 or 8 mana to just draw cards every turn. And again, this deck is nothing but commons. If you're considering Touch of Brilliance, you've got such better options. You know. Where would I play Touch of Brilliance? I would play Touch of Brilliance probably, realistically, if I had to, in a deck that revolved around unusual, like an. If we could find him building enough, like creating enough cards, I might do like an artist tribal kind of deck. You really, if you're doing anything else, everything's got to be a sorcery. Okay, you should be able to draw 4 cards by that. In fact, for a slightly harder cost, you get concentrate. 2 blue plus 2 instead of, 1 blue plus 3. You get I think you can even get draw 4, discard 2 or something. Yeah, Ollie. um this turn and next turn creatures can't attack. Okay. Anything so they you'd have a 2-card combo that could blow up anything that that okay. So Siren's Call basically turns around and says, so let's ignore peace talks for a moment. Siren's Call turns around and says, cool. Anything that you have that can attack must attack. Anything at the end of turn that doesn't attack, that apart from stuff that came into play this turn, because it specifically has that restriction. So basically it looks at everything that already existed at the start of turn. All you guys that aren't walls that can attack have to attack. If you don't, you get blowed up at the end of turn. Peace talks, turns around and says, can't attack. If they have defender but not the wall type, yes. Because Siren's Call specifically points out non-wall. So, what was it? That one blue creature from, I think it was Champions of Kamigawa that had Defender that was like a 2/3. Oh, no, certain people knew about it. They just generally didn't play it. Part of the problem is you need them you need both of them at the same time, and there's not really easy ways to find, like, at at that point, because talking pre pre Odyssey. You basically only had Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor to be able to find them. There was no Search Your Library for an Instant or Search Your Library for a Sorcery kind of card yet. Yeah. Oh yeah, Mystical Tutor and the one from Homelands, Merchant Scroll. But keep in mind, most people still played according to. Yeah, I think I mentioned Vampiric. Um, apart, most people that I know of still built according to vintage deck construction rules, which basically gave you demonic, vampiric, vampiric at one, demonic at one, mystical at one, and merchant scroll at one. So you'd have like four cards to try and find your pieces. And at least two, if not three of those, put them on top of your deck, which meant they were something that your opponent could muck around with. The only one I don't specifically remember is Merchant Scroll. Okay, Merchant Scroll, put it in your hand. Okay, good. Yeah, no. Nobody bothered with Rustic Tutor. Because it's what, 5 mana? No, 3 mana. Because the part of the problem, the biggest problem with Rustic Tutor and tutors in general was you never counter the tutor. You counter what they tutor for. And it's especially true if it's something like Vampiric Tutor or Mystical Tutor that goes on top of their deck, or, you know, or some other tutor where you reveal it. Because generally revealing is, I'm looking for a card that falls in a certain category. I have to be able to prove that what I'm looking for falls in that category. This is why they've got cards that, search your library for a forest, reveal it, then put it into your hand, etc. Or the white ones that search for planes always have if they're putting them in your hand, you always reveal. But yeah. But yeah, Touch of Brilliance, don't bother. Um, but yeah, nowadays it's more likely to pull something like that off because you've got enough ways to get around that. You've got cards that can search up specifically instants and sorceries a lot easier. But yeah, just back then, just not worth the effort. Also, you constantly wanted duplication of effect and stopping people from being able to attack I mean, the best card to stop people from being able to attack would be like Moat, which even back then was already expensive. I think at that point was like $300 or whatever. I'm afraid to look at. I'm afraid to find out what it is now. Mystic Denial, 2 blue plus 1. This makes cancel look good. Counter target creature or sorcery spell. This is basically saying I'm counterspell for anything that exists in this set apart from lands. The problem is when you extract it to the game at large, counterspell was still being printed at this point. It was 1 mana less and could stop anything, including other stuff that would exist. And even if you weren't playing Counterspell itself, you had Arcane Denial available and Mana Leak and all sorts of other crazy shenanigans. Mystic Denial, unless you've got a really good reason for playing it. A lot of people that made cards at this time were like, and here's Counterspell by the same artist, being printed in 1997. The same year as Mystical Denial. Yeah. You play this because you're building around certain artists or something like that. Incidentally, do not sleep on Aftershock. It is a great card. I mention this consistently to people, even if I'm at a booth with my local games store at an event like I did Fan Expo this past weekend. Probably about half a dozen times I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, don't forget this is a card that exists. It's like a quarter. And it will just outright kill. Oh, I'm well aware. I already mentioned that. Which is why I mentioned, it would be fine against, stuff that's in its own set. But beyond that, we're currently looking at them. I did not say that lol. Womp womp. Snapping Drake. They tried, like, this is a... Holly, maybe you can help me think of the word I'm looking for. Is it benchmark? It's like... Oh yeah. Yeah, it was this one. Yeah. I cannot think of the word I'm thinking, I want. But when you have, here's the card that I'm looking at. Here's like the baseline for what a card should be. Like, let's say, like if I'm in blue, I'm going to be comparing a lot of, and I'm looking at uncommons. I'm comparing things to air elemental. Benchmark? Is that the word I want? I think that might be the word I'm looking for. It might be benchmark. Yeah. So if I'm looking at uncommons around this era, and it's a mid-range flying creature, I'm going to be using air elemental as my starting point. I'm going to be using it as my benchmark. Um, Incidentally, FYI, one card that I noticed. Where is she? Oh yeah, Starlit Angel. You compare this to Sarah Angel, she fails. Because Starlight Angel was also uncommon, I believe. Yeah, she was also uncommon. Love the art, by the way. But if you made her into a 3/5, even though she doesn't have vigilance, suddenly the comparison isn't so clear. You know? 3/4, she fails even against Air Elemental. 3/5 against Sarah Angel, it's suddenly a coin toss. You generally still want Sarah Angel because vigilance, but that 5th point of toughness is going to do a lot more than it first appears. Anyway, yeah, Snapping Drake. My biggest point of comparison for something like this, I think, is still Phantom Monster. Yeah, 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer. Got printed in 5th edition at uncommon. This was a common. Okay, I can see it being down a point. But something about it bothers me. Has always bothered me. And I think it's a 4 mana 3/2. And I remember Phantom Monster a lot, which was a 3/3 flyer for 4 mana. But that I did not realize for the longest time was an uncommon. And this just felt weak. And I think part of the problem too was it was blue +3 for a 3/2. I'm looking at that and going, it's 4 mana. I want one of those numbers to be a 4. Make it a 4/2 or make it a 3/3. A 3/3 I was okay with. But, I mean, there's no way you'd make it into a 3/4. But maybe make it a 4/1? It's I think it was the lack of symmetry that really bothered me about this card. Either the stats themselves should be balanced, or the power or the toughness should add up, should be the same as the mana cost. You know? I think that was the big thing that bothered me. That being said, if you're, I'm pretty sure you still don't play this if you're playing Drake Tribal. Thing from the Deep. 9 mana for 9/9. When it attacks, sack unless you sack an island. Chances are you're playing this with enough. No, but again, you're looking at Portal. I don't think Portal had trample in it. No, there's nothing in this set that's got trample. Creatures would just be big. But this showcased what big blue creatures were like. They are big with a drawback. Or they're going to be smaller. Yeah, And that drawback you could get around. And if you played this just off straight islands, like if you had non-islands in play, which was not unreasonable, no, but Colossus of Sardia, you also didn't have to find a way to untap. I think this was okay. Based on what it was. Yeah. Well, yes and no. If you didn't have a way to cheat the untapping, you had to pay 9 mana to untap it. So, I eat a land every turn versus. Yes, you did. Mishra's Workshop only helped for casting them, not for activating abilities. Tap, add triple colorless. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells. Yeah, only helps for casting them. But yeah, Thing for the Deep, if you're looking for giant ocean beasts, you could do worse. There are cards I would suggest instead of this. Like the aforementioned Inkwell Leviathan. But you could do worse. And, you're talking a big blue creature. You want it to have some kind of additional ability. I personally, instead of this, I would play Marshon because I think it is an I think Marshon is a better card than most people give it credit for. I pretty much never use this part. I pretty much never use this part. This almost never comes up. It is this last ability here that I care about. Just being able to pump mana into it and go, hey, by the way, kill it. 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 You put something like Basilisk Collar on this, and suddenly it's blue, blue, colon, destroy target attacking creature without flying. And the funny thing is, you can block all day long. You can pump as much mana into this ability as you want. You could pump like 50 mana into this ability. Okay, it gets minus 25 power till end of turn. Okay. So it'll be treated as though it had minus 17 power, which means when it go to actual combat math, it'll be treated as 0. Don't care. Do not care. It is a lot better than I think most people give it credit for. You ignore this. You ignore this. You ignore this. You ignore this. Because most of the time, all that matters when I play it is it's an 8/8 with this ability. And you can ping that creature, that creature, that creature, that creature, that creature, and block this one. Do not care. So, this can screw up combat math so hard. Even funnier, it can kill creatures that aren't even, like, it's not, they don't even have to be attacking you. They just have to be attacking. Yeah, have fun with that. But yes, I would play that long before I played Thing from the Deep. Thing from the Deep, for what it is fine, but there's better at around that cost with relevant creature types. I'm not, this is a Leviathan. Look up Leviathans, you're going to find more options. Although anything that cares about Leviathans probably also cares about other giant ocean beasts like serpents. Let me think here. Serpents, serpent, Leviathan, octopus, and kraken, I think. Ingenious Thief. This is an ingenious card. Womp womp. So this is one of those cards that you don't mind flickering at every so often. I wouldn't spend all my flicker on it, but I every so often go, oh, okay, you have this now. Oh, you can't. Because every time you're able to look at your opponent's hand for whatever reason, you get information that you can plan around. 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer. When it enters, look at target player's hand. Okay. Cool. Now I know that, sometime in the next 3 turns, this opponent is likely to be doing X. I'll make sure I hold up a counter spell for those, for the next 3 turns. After that, I don't care. Yeah, playable. Taunt. Similar to the Siren's Call that Holly mentioned earlier. 1 blue, sorcery. During target player's next turn, creatures that player controls attack you if able. Note they specifically have to attack you. Which can kind of make a mess of things if they really planned. So, if you have a high enough life total, or if you're playing with cards like Holy Day or Fog or Darkness, you can turn around and basically play this and be like, alright, I'm going to give you a chance. What? I'm going to give you a chance. You've got 1 turn. Don't make a mess of it. What? And basically politics somebody from, if this player was about to kill this player, you can turn around and force this one to attack you instead. Yeah, kinda. They have to attack you. Siren's Call just makes them attack. Siren's Call also has that, nice kill them if they don't thing. But yeah. I would, if you want politics thrown in, taunt can work. Command of Unsummoning. So basically 3 mana to unsummon up to 2 creatures. They have to be attacking, which also means they're going to get whatever attack triggers happen. Yeah. Oh, Lord. Return 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. The command is an instant, but the command says they have to be attacking, which is the only reason why it's an instant. But it's also easier to cast. I would not complain about running both. If you're looking for something of that nature and you want to be able to hit like more than 1 creature cheaply, Command of Unsummoning and Undo, yeah, I might consider putting them both in the same deck. Symbol of Unsummoning. This is basically sorcery version of, oh, what do you call it? Repulse? I think. Repulse sounds right. Yeah, return target creature to its owner's hand. Yeah. This um is literally just repulse as a cantrip or as a sorcery, which is still fine when you're looking at commander because a lot of the times you just need to be able to get it off the board. And if you can wait until your turn to do it, that's fine. And this came first. And this again, this is not a terrible card. I will point out you can use it on your own creatures. So if you've got a creature with a cool come into play ability, or alternatively, if you've got a creature that's been, that's got some kind of drawback thing attached to it that somebody else threw on it. So, for example, somebody cast pacifism on it, or has turned it into an elk, or what have you. You can send this back to your hand, draw an additional card, and replay your original creature. So it's an option. Tidal Surge, 3 mana. Tap up to 3 target creatures without flying. Tapping 3 creatures for 2 mana is pretty good. This feels like mana wise, it's based on Mana Leak. And I mean, if you're doing it against green, a lot of the times that's similar to Mana Leak. Tapping 3 lands, tapping 3 elves, same idea. But this is a lot more flexible. And if you're looking to push through damage, this does like probably half the job of sleep more often than not for about half the cost. Not a terrible card. Um, probably covered it when I covered Stronghold already, but yeah, it's quite playable. Coral Eel. Even if you're playing Fish Tribal, I probably wouldn't bother. Have you made it? Una Fricker has made enough cards that you might be able to consider making a deck for her. Oh my god, this is the person that drew Wasteland. That's hilarious. 43, so close. Yeah. Oh, exactly. It's which is probably why the name is, Coral Eel. It's probably a nod to coral merfolk. But no, like I would play so many of these cards before Coral Eel just because it doesn't do anything. And some would say no, it does nothing. Giant Octopus, again, you play this in a deck based on Giant Ocean Beasts, but this is at the smaller end of that scale. So maybe you have this in there as an early drop. I don't know. If I'm doing that, I I would probably, yeah, I mean technically true, which suddenly means that you're going to want to run the cephalids instead of cards like this. I was going to turn around and say, hey, by the way, you've got all these changelings now. But I mean, like giant octopus again. I see this and um I constantly see Phantom Monster as being, and the thing is, Phantom Monster has been power crept. Well, yeah. The difference between this and Phantom Monster is during this time frame, Phantom Monster was uncommon. It has since been dropped down to common, you know, relatively recently, to be honest. But Phantom Monster has been power crept. So there are commons that are better than Phantom Monster. Yeah. Like, power equals 3, toughness equals 3, O flying, O roll A, ID equal U, rarity common. Jin Windseer is strictly better than Giant Octopus pretty much across the board. You get a 3/3 Octopus versus a 3/3 Jin, which creature type could be a wash depending on your deck. But apart from that, flying with a common playability of Scry. 1, 2, or 3. I would assume on average you'd be scrying 2. Actually, on average, I'd probably say 1.5, but that rounds closer to 2 than 1, especially since there's a Scry 3 involved on Nat 20. This is 50% of the time. This is 45% of the time. And this is 5% of the time. Also beat nuts. So yeah, Ginny Windseer, strictly better unless the creature type is relevant. Yeah. If the creature type is relevant, maybe. But even so, if you're looking at that, looking at changelings. Windrake. A benchmark for ages. It's finally been pushed aside. I want to say you can get it. Pardon me. I want to say you can get a 2/3 for that, like a 2/3 flyer for that now. But you're going to get a 2/2 flyer. Like, here's the thing. This should be the minimum acceptable creature for any deck. If you're looking, like, I'm looking in blue, I'm looking at commons, I got a 3 mana creature. This should be your baseline. You should always be able to find something better than this. Don't even look at anything worse than this. Don't even bother. If it's got worse stats, it better have a strong enough ability to compensate. And that strong enough ability could be something like it's a 3 mana 1/1 that comes in play, draws a card. Like a 1/1 flyer, I should say. That might be enough. And for a deck like this, which is based literally all over drawing cards, that's the sort of thing I'm specifically looking for. Capricious Sorcerer. Back in the day, 3 mana, 1/1, tap to deal a point of damage to any target was commonly a blue thing, occasionally a red thing, but most commonly blue because it's something that wizards could do. Not the company, the creature type. Because they constantly shot like magic missile and fireball and all sorts of other little damage spells. Just it's a thing that wizards could do. They've eventually moved that primarily over to red. Hey, SO! You made it! um, let's see here. Montreal Comic Con was, I think, early July. Otaku-san was early to mid August. This past weekend was Fan Expo in Toronto. All three of them I had fun at. I consistently enjoy being able to go out and do these conventions with my LGS. Um, I when you get the ability to talk to people who stop by your booth about something you really enjoy and get to sell them products that you can find ways because you know them well, you're like, oh, by the way, people ask you, well, what's in Fallen Empires? And apart from my namesake, you know, I'm like, well, if you're a casual magic, if you're a casual commander player like I am, there's a lot. There's probably like 15, at least 15 cards that I would not even blink at playing. And even if you're a bit more competitive than that, I could probably still find at least half a dozen. The two pump nights, high tide, him to Torak, Aeola Pile at one point was seeing a fair amount of play, which is a card I completely forget exists. You've got the storage lands, you've got the lands that come into play tapped. Uh, Tap for 1 mana of the appropriate color, sack for 2. You've got Hand of Justice if you want to be able to just kill creatures outright. There's a lot in the set that, just people don't. If you're an actual competitive player, you might only find like, say, 3 or 4 cards in it at most. The big ones that people think of are, him to Torak and High Tide. But if you're less competitive than that, there's just so much in there. Homelands. I will constantly tell people, it's a great set flavor wise, and if everything in there costs like 1 less mana, it would have been one of the best sets in the game, and we probably wouldn't have any in stock to be able to actually put out. Because it's like maybe $20 Canadian in pack, so about 15-ish US. If everything costs like 1 less mana, it would probably be somewhere closer to like $50 a pack. But, yeah. And yet, I tell people these, things, and I can sell probably a dozen packs of, I might be able to sell a dozen packs of each over a weekend. And I'm like, but these are sets that are commonly looked at as being bad sets. But it depends on who you're talking to. But also helps. I specifically remember when these sets came out. So, yeah. I constantly have a lot of fun with these things. I met a young lady from I th- I think she said her family's from Romania, but she relatively recently moved to Toronto. She had a couple of cousins. She was working the event itself, so not one of the booths. She was working for Fan Expo itself. I forget what exactly it was she was doing. Um, but she had a couple of cousins with her that were also helping out, and she had been teaching them how to play Magic. And she's like asking for recommendations on, you know, what kind of decks to bring or what kind of decks for them to buy. And so I pointed out to her, you know, and the the and her couple of I'll say assistants because it seems like they may have all been working in the same the same area together or something like that, and she would have been one in charge. That they had um, starter commander precons, and so I felt like those were a good introduction to the format and something that I, as an experienced Magic player, would not be actually unhappy about playing. You know, sure, there's a bunch of cards that I'd want to take out, but I could understand, it's easy to understand what the deck is trying to do, you know, and the kind of cards you want to take out and what to replace, upgrade the mana base, whatnot. Um, so, of course, the one based on flying, I I turn around and say, "Do you understand how flying works?" And if they say yes, it's like, if you're play, here's the big thing to keep in mind: a lot of people don't play with flying creatures because that's not what their deck does. If you're playing elves, for example, you very rarely have any flying creatures or creatures with reach. You're going to be able to get through for damage so often because you have flying and they don't. And they're like, oh. Same with goblins, same with slivers, unless they've got certain things out. Same with Eldrazi, even. A lot of Eldrazi don't fly. And so getting through for that extra damage, turn after turn after turn, you can keep putting the pressure on. And the other ones they ended up picking up was based on, I forget the actual version of it, but the face card was one of the versions of Amara. And I think it's like whenever she becomes tapped, you make a 1/1 token or something like that. Um, you. Oh, yeah, there she is. Amara, Soul of the Accord. This one. Whenever she becomes tapped, make a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. Okay, good night, good night, Holly. Sure, but in and of themselves, they commonly, like, for example, like, depending on how you build your deck. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Um, this is my commons only elf deck. Uh, I don't remember. Okay, I have Elvish Sky Sweeper, where I can sack a creature to blow up a flyer. I have Jaspera Sentinel that's got reach. I've got a Traxxas Fall that can blow up a flyer. I've got Thornwilled Archer that's got reach. Technically, I've got Arachnus Webs that's basically a green arrest. High Rise Sawjack's got reach. Solana's Star Fletcher's got reach. Unstable Obelisk, if you want to spend a grand total of 10 mana and blow it up, can blow up a permanent. Yeah. And that's all I've got in my deck that can deal with flyers in any way, shape, or form, specifically. But again, that deck is strictly commons. If I'm building a generic deck, like a generic elf deck, I think my Golgari Elves, which I think is this one, probably has less to deal with flyers. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. Skyway Sniper. Yeah, and it's a good card. I'm not just but when you start looking at Commander, wow. Elfsworn Giant. And then I've got an Angaric's Wake, a Beast Within, Assassin's Trophy, Atomize. And that's it. And those last 4 cards are like destroy target permanent sort of thing. And so you got to be a lot more careful with what you're actually using them on. And I don't think I have much in terms of bringing stuff back from the graveyard. Like Eternal Witness type cards. So it's a lot harder to be able to find stuff that can actually. I think I'm gonna have more trouble with my not commons only 2-color deck with flyers than my commons only one. Just because of the like I was looking for elves that did specific things, and flying was not high on my radar. And I'm not saying right, and I'm not saying wrong. I'm just I tend to look more like cards like this. I tend to go with that art. But Elvish Hunter, for example, you know, a creature gets tapped and then it doesn't untap next turn. What was the other green elf that I like from this set? Elvish Hunter. Was it not an elf? Am I misremembering things? Oh yeah, Elvish Scout. You know, which is basically you maze a with one of your own creatures. But yeah, flying is an ability that consistently gets overlooked. Consistently, even by experienced players. And it if your deck is based around, being down with flying creatures like the one starter commander deck is, it's white blue, you're going to be able to push through a lot more damage than your opponents are. Especially if your creatures have vigilance or some other way to untap. It's just absolutely silly. And so, yeah, I my Splinter Twin deck, a lot of the creatures that I want to twin don't fly. I think I think only a couple of them do. Um Oops, cuz I want them to be able to, when they come to play, untap target creature. I'm not aware of many creatures in that deck. Well, my teamer. Visual spoiler. You don't matter. You fly. You fly. Yeah, the stuff that I want to combo off with like Kiki Jiki or whatever, only two of them actually fly, and only one of them will actually untap Kiki Jiki or Splinter, itself or whatever. Um, yeah, somebody turns around. I've got Cloud Thresher in there, which is a 7/7 with reach, which will kill most flyers. Not necessarily. In I mean, cause don't forget, like even in Pauper, you've got like 2 mana, 2/3s. Sure, come into play, return something back to your hand. That's not necessarily a drawback. If you're looking for an aggro flying deck, you can build it. It's a lot easier than most people give it credit for. Um, One card that I remember, I wish I could remember the name of it, but a few years back, like pre-COVID, I had a Boros aggro auras deck, and I was generally using white for creatures. Like this was around M19 era. I was using white for my creatures and red for the auras because I liked the red auras better. Cards like Sea Red and oh wow, I know Swiftblade Vindicator was in there, but Sea Red, and there was another. There was like one or two others I had, like Knight's Pledge in there as well, and Champion of the Flame. But most of my creatures were white, and I had, let's see here, power equal 1, toughness equal 2, flying, mana value equal 1, color equal white. this thing. Rustwing Falcon. I don't remember. No, Battlefield Raptor wasn't out yet. Rustwing Falcon I played. Um, because it was a cheap creature that I. No, it wasn't Sea Red. Oh, no, I'm gonna spell this wrong, I'm sure. Got them backwards. When it enters, deals 1 damage to enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +3/+0 and has trample. I had this in that deck, which was the big reason why I wanted Rustwing Falcon. Because that second point of toughness, that 1 point of damage meant that it would survive getting a crown tossed onto it. And my starting point was this Novice Knight. You throw, let's say, Tilonali's Crown on this. You attack for 5 on turn 2. And there were, even if you had Sea Red on it, now it's attacking as a 4/4 first strike on turn 2. Stuff like that. So it was a decent deck. It wasn't a great deck, but it was a decent deck. Anyway, Capricious Sorcerer. If you're considering playing Capricious Sorcerer, look into the other blue cards that existed that had similar abilities at this point. Prodigal Sorcerer would be your benchmark for this. You also had Tima Boat, aka Pirate Ship, Tima Stick, aka Rod of Ruin. You had Revica. I forget what her name was. This? No, not really. It's the same cost, it's the same size. It's because Tim, for those that don't know, refers to Prodigal Sorcerer. Human Wizard. Originally printed with this art. Tap, 1 damage, change target. Human Wizard, 1 blue +2 for a 1/1. Exact same thing. The only thing that you're looking at is it's a different name, but you have to do it before attackers are declared. If you really need a 3 mana 1/1, if you really need a 3 mana Human Wizard that taps to do a point of damage and you need more copies of that effect, then maybe you run Capricious Wizard or Capricious Sorcerer. But you run the Prodigal Sorcerer first. Withering Gaze. This is going to be really, really good in Commander because, as I've mentioned in the past, green is a heavily played color. Either on its own or in combination with other stuff. A mono green deck on its own, especially based around green strengths like ramping, extra mana production, giant beasts, and stuff like that. Yeah, you get this in like the mid game, and you're probably paying 3 mana, drawing 4, 5, 6 cards off of it. Even if you're only drawing 3, the only places because you're going to fail if they have any non-basic lands apart from those that actually have the forest type. So like Sapseed Forest, for example, comes to mind. Or I forget what. Oh, Gingerbread Cabin, I think, is the other one. Or colorless artifacts. But if they've got any green artifacts, you're going to draw cards for them. You should be able to draw at least 3 cards for 3 mana off of somebody. And get information about what they're likely to be doing over the next few turns. Yeah, no wonder it's relatively high on the list of cards to play. Balance of power. Uh, Whoever's got more cards than you? What, the Withering Graze? I would assume you are going to draw cards. The number of people that, like, I would assume that in any pod, at least one person is playing green, probably 2 of them, probably in some combination with something else. And if they're playing green, I would say probably a 40 to 50% chance they're playing mono green. Because mono green in Commander is actually pretty good. Balance of power is, I'm sorry, if you are playing, if you think you're going to be playing against somebody in the MTG Goldfish crew, you should have this in your deck. Somebody, and it might be, especially if it's, Seth or Seth or Phil, was going to end up drawing a bunch of cards. Yeah. I'm aware, but if you're playing Commander, even if you're 1v1, there's a not unreasonable chance somebody's going to have a decent amount of green in their deck. I would. I think it's. I think between green and black, you're probably facing a 60% chance of your opponent playing at least one of those 2 colors. I think green and black are that much overrepresented. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think they're more likely to be played than other colors. Red, white, and blue tend to more be played in combination with something else. Maybe in combination with each other, maybe in combination with one of the other 2 colors, or more than one of the other 2 colors. But they're usually in combination with something. Whereas green and white usually are played by themselves. Well, I shouldn't say usually, but yeah. Sure. But green normally doesn't get hell bent that early. That being said, yeah, as I was saying, balance of power. If you have a chance to play against somebody in the Goldfish crew, are you playing blue? You need to be able to draw cards. Run this. Time ebb. Put target creature on top of its owner's library. If you have the way to get this at instant speed, doing this in response to your opponent cracking a fetch land, let's say, is just insane. Even if you can't, if your deck is designed to make people shuffle, cast this and then make them shuffle, have fun. This followed up by a time twister effect. Ooh. Baleful Stare. Honestly, I would play Withering Gaze before I played Withering Stare. Because I feel like, Withering Gaze rather. Because I feel like Withering Gaze is going to hit much more often than Baleful Stare is. They're basically the same card. One hits red, one hits green. The green one I feel is going to be more useful. Deja Vu. I think that might be. Nope. I was gonna say the first card with the first card that came out with accents on it, but you already had cards like Elishaj, for example. Although to be fair, did Quambash Witches have an accent? I don't remember. Although I'm not sure that's the proper pronunciation for it. Nope. Um, but not a thing that. Oh, yeah, and then of course the AE ligature, which eventually got just broken down into two letters. Anyway, um, yeah, not a thing that you see very often. Anyway, 3 mana, return target sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. It itself is a sorcery, which is kind of adorable. It's possible you could find a way to get it to bring itself. I, you, oh no, relearn. Relearn? 2 blue plus 1. Return target instant sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So you could do some kind of weird shenanigans where you relearn a deja vu, you deja vu a relearn. You have infinite mana, you could just keep going wee, and sometimes that's enough to get you enough storm count that you can just go. Oh, and by the way, brain freeze, all of you. You have anything to shuffle stuff back in? Okay, y'all lose. Merry Christmas. You have an answer. Horned turtle. Again, averages out to a 2/3. So blind phantasm, I think it's called. From Future Sight? Yep. Blind Phantasm. How has that not got reprinted since then? That feels weird. Also, that looks like it's supposed to be Jace. Anyway, averages out to a 2/3. So it's about right. Um, but yeah, that, that was more a hacking cough, but thank you. um, again, you should be able to find better than this by now. You know, you even for vanillas, you should be able to find better by now. In fact, I think you can get a 1/5 by now for this. I think. Depends on what you're looking for. Omen. Omen is basically, I think that's Ponder? Look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle. Draw a card. This is literally Ponder for 1 more mana. If you need to be able to find certain things, like if you're playing the kind of deck that consistently wants to be able to hit its land drops, I feel this is more a CDH level card. Because it constantly wants to be able to find the same parts regularly. So Omen, I feel more fits a CDH deck than a regular EDH deck. I generally don't like these kind of effects. I want them to be more consistent than that. You know, I don't want like 37 cantrips in my deck. You know, barring barring a deck that's specifically based around the idea, including the creatures doing so. I don't want like 37 cards. I might be exaggerating, but you get the point. Nice. What kind? What's he up against? Do you know? I don't want a bunch of cards whose job it is just okay, cool. I hit a land. Oh, or whatever, and just I don't want to be spinning my wheels a lot. And in Commander, it's like you have to be a lot more judicious with the kind of cards you're playing. It's harder to make it. You only want like if you're playing that kind of deck, you basically want the best cards to do the job. And if you're running Omen, it's because there's not other cards that do what you need it to do in your deck. I don't know. I don't want a bunch of brainstorms and ponders and preordains and whatever, unless I've got a really, really good reason for doing so. I would rather have something that does something useful, like one blue sorcery, return target creature to owner's hand, draw a card, or something of that nature. Green versus green, I wasn't playing tonight, so. Well, this being deluxe we're talking about, he could be playing elves, he could be playing poison. He could be playing. He could be finding like a mono green. He could have come up with like a mono green Ponza list, which is not completely unlikely. Is Ice Storm? You're not calling, are you? No. ID equal green. Format popper. Thermal Curse is legal. Monfuli Acid Moss is legal. Potentially Reap and Sow. So you could actually build a mono green Ponza deck. And I would not put that past him either. Familiar, much more the kind of card I'd be interested in. 1/1 flyer comes in play, draw a card, then discard. Tokens and Biograph. So the thing about Biograph is it still dies to things like Smother. Why does nobody play like unless it's just me? Why does nobody seem to play Hooting Mandrills anymore? Is it just too slow? Okay, I feel better. Wow, Hooting Mandrills and Biograph in the same deck. That sounds. Sack a creature or pay 3. So if you're playing tokens. I'm curious to find out what his list is going to be like. I will look into it later. Phantom Warrior. If you're looking at a deck that's based around, unable to be blocked, was just more interesting card to name for me because it can use it, because I use it in a list with Tethmos High Priest. Yep. Discard it for whatever reason. Reanimate it with a priest. Yep. No big deal. Yeah, Phantom Warrior, if you want to build unblockable, Phantom Warrior's Phantom Warrior's a good starting point. Play this and you know, stuff to give it like Shroud or whatever. And people are gonna, yeah. This is gonna be one of my, I think the word I want is benchmarks for whatchamacallit, my Simic unblockable deck. This is like what I'm going to be aiming for. Sorcerer's Sight, this is basically peak as a sorcery. Actually, was peak a sorcery? No, peak is an instant. Although, it cannot target yourself. You have to target somebody else. Mixed blessing there. But it's fine if you're looking for... I would prefer... See, this is the thing, though. In general, I would prefer to have an effect like that over Omen. But it doesn't... Like, it's just... I don't know. I'm not thrilled with either one in general. Exhaustion. Exhaustion is worded the way it is because the set, again, only had creatures, lands, and sorceries. So spelling out creatures and lands in the set made sense. You start going to, later sets, and they just say, well, instead creatures and lands, we're going to say creatures and lands. And, well, now it's creatures and lands. Which basically means most of the relevant stuff that your opponent cares about does not untap next turn. Cloud Pirates. Ruh-roh. 1 blue for a 1/1 flyer that can only block flyers. Back in the day, they had decided that 1 blue for a 1/1 flyer was too much. It started off with, being fair, and then they dropped it down. Oh yeah. Started off being fair, and then they're like, no, too strong. So they created this and Cloud of Fairies. And a few other cards of that nature. And this is fine. Again, if you're looking for something like smash through for extra damage, Cloud Pirates is fine. Sure, it can only block flyers. You throw auras on here to give it, to make it bigger till end of turn, or not till end of turn, but just to make it bigger, and just smack through. Cloak of Feathers, love the art on this card. Target creature gains flying till end of turn. Draw a card. 1 blue. Like, this is a great... If you were looking to give something flying till end of turn, this is what you should be starting with. If you just want a simple one-shot effect, this should be probably your first starting point. 1 blue, give flying, draw a card. Theft of Dreams. How many cards do you want to be able to draw? Yes. you know. Again, turns in, targets an opponent, but it's like, cool, you attacked with 7 creatures. I'll pay 3 mana and draw 7 cards. By the way, in Exodus, it was a common. Oops. Yeah, one of the cards I really considered for my my commons only, cantrip deck. Probably should have been in there. Flux. Each player discards any number of cards and draws that many cards. Draw a card. So if I discard 5 cards, I'm going to draw 5 cards. But since I cast Flux, I'm going to draw a card to replace the Flux as well. Yeah. You get to choose what you're pitching. However many you pitch, that's how many you draw. Personal Tutor. Search for a sorcery, reveal it, put it on top. Shuffle them, put it on top. This is basically Mystical Tutor. But Mystical Tutor that can only hit sorceries and is a sorcery. But sorceries instance didn't per se exist. Like, they would all say sorcery, but they would have a timing thing that turned around and said, hey, by the way, no, you're actually an instant. I have to plow through this quickly because I decided to do a silly thing and go through every single card. Charging Bandits. What I said before about, I can't not remember what you're called. Oh, Charging Paladin. 3 mana for 2/2 that when it attacks gets +0 till end of turn. Charging Bandits, similar idea. 5 mana for a 3/3. If you get extra attacks, this is going to pump its power till end of turn. The big difference here is, while the other one can work on its own with an appropriate deck, like, Toughness Matters deck, this really wants something to give it. I mean, this can work on its own in a manner of speaking. You're going to want a way to give extra combats. You're also going to want a way to give this at least first strike. Doesn't have to get more than first strike, but I would say at least first strike. Because that way, anything that blocks it is probably going to die. The first time it's going to attack is a 5/3. If you get an extra combat, it then attacks as a 7/3, and you can plow through your opponent's creatures or your opponent's that way. And because that +2/+0 lasts till end of turn, you can, at the end of, once you're done all your combat, you can turn around and go, oh, by the way, it's like 37 power. I'm going to fling it at your face for 37. What were you at? 25? Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's enough to kill you. Soul Shred. This kind of is trying to be like destroy target creature. But like destroy target non-black creature, you gain 3 life. Because a lot of creatures in the set will die of that. Here's the thing. Back in the day, black removal spells always had some kind of restriction added onto them. And quite often, they had trouble dealing with their own color. A black card, because, for example, a lot of creatures had, were undead, let's say. Well, if you've got a card named something like Soul Rip, but the creature you're dealing with is undead, it doesn't really have a soul, so it doesn't. Or Soul Shred is since we're looking at the card name, makes more sense in this context. Doesn't really work. Thing is, nowadays it's like, well, I shouldn't even say nowadays. I think it's is it Essence Drain I'm thinking of? Yeah, easier cost, still the same mana value, but easier cost. 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. 3 damage to target non-black creature cannot hit players and you gain 3 life. Obviously, if you're going for this style of effect, you go for Essence Drain first. Well, find something that can kill the creature first. And if you're doing that, find just outright creature removal. Like, oh well, where are you? Like, just good old-fashioned murder. 2 black plus 1, instant destroy target creature. If you want to be able to gain life through it, Murderous Rider. Destroy target creature or planeswalker, you lose 2 life. But then you can cast the regular version as a 2/3 lifelinker. When that dies, it goes to the bottom of its owner's library, so you can keep getting it back. Yeah. Soul Shred, just don't bother. Charging Bandit's better than Soul Shred in my opinion. Craven Knight, 2/2 that can't, for 2 mana that can't block. Back in the day, this would have been fair. Nowadays, you have Walking Corpse, which I believe might have been the first time we had a 2/2 for 2 in black with a relevant creature type with no drawback. Yeah, don't. Unless you've got an overriding reason to play it, like, you know, you're building around, again, you're building around esoteric creatures, or artists, I should say. Just don't. Serpent Warrior? Yeah, exactly. You can find cards with that cost and power and an ability nowadays. Exactly. When OG Innistrad gave us Walking Corpse, cards like Craven Knight just weren't worth it anymore. Serpent Warrior, at that point, yeah, was an acceptable drawback. You know, was an acceptable thing. 3 mana for a 3/3. Comes into play, lose 3 life. It only had a drawback that you had to worry about once. 3 life in a 20 life format is not big. It is something, but it's not big. In a 40 life format, it's pretty much nothing. If you're playing mono black snakes, you might be tempted to play this. Probably better cards, but if you go far enough down the lane through the list, you might end up wanting to play this anyway. Howling Fury. I like this card. 1 black, 2 other sorcery. Target creature gets +4/+0 till end of turn. I'm not saying it's a great card, but I like this card. Compare Feast of the Unicorn from Homelands. Costs an extra mana for an enchant creature with the same ability. feels like the right cost based on that. And it's a fixed amount. It's not like Hell from Beyond, which is, plus X plus 0, where X is the amount of money that you put into it. Like Hell from Beyond, black plus X. And I think was instant. But that you meant you had to spend like 5 mana to give plus 4 plus 0. This is 3 mana. When it's a fixed amount, it's usually cost less. This is fine. I'm not happy with it in terms of like, well, I mean, I am and I'm not, because at 3 mana, you're commonly looking at creatures you control get +2 +0 to end a turn if you're playing red. And red and black tend to overlap a lot in terms of like what abilities they get and how they play and everything else. So for a single creature to get +4 power feels, that probably feels about right. But black is also likely to get stuff with like First Strike, for example. And occasionally get things with like Double Strike. Although that's also a red thing. I don't know. I think if I'm building around Double Strike, Howling Fury might be in my list. If I can find a more cost-efficient way to do it, yeah. But again, you can always get around that. There's always ways to get around that. Undying Beast. At first glance, not an exciting creature. 4 mana for a 3/2, meh. But when it dies, put it on top of its owner's library. Like, this to me is like, again, this is the same sort of thing as the Alabaster Dragon. Something you constantly want to keep getting back into play. This is a thing that can work with cards like Viscera Seer, where, sack a creature to do some effect. And then you cast it again the next turn. And you do it again. And you cast it again the next turn. And you do it again. If you've got... And this card... Yeah, I'm fine with it not having the you may clause. I'm perfectly fine with it not having the you may clause. If you really want it to not go on top of your library, you can exile it through other means. Or find a way to return. You can return it back from your graveyard to your hand at instant speed, or what have you. There's ways around that. But Undying Beast feels like something where I don't think combo is the right word I want, but definitely synergy can work with certain decks. And if, like, is this the right one? Yeah, my Mono Black Aristocrats deck would not say no to a card like that. Because I can keep, have a creature come into play, sack it to, X effect, get Y abilities out of it, put it back on top of my deck, do it again, turn after turn after turn. And if I ever worried about, and if I ever have to worry about milling out, Undying Beast will keep me alive. Hell, if I've got a deck with Undying Beast and Alabaster Dragon, I'm not going to worry too much about milling out anytime soon. Vampiric Feast. 4 damage to any target and you gain 4 life for 7 mana. Does not sound great, but compare that to Soul Shred, which can only hit creatures and does it for 3. Vampiric Feast, 2 more mana, can hit any target. Soul Shred is only non-black creatures. Vampiric Feast for 2 extra mana. Any creature or player, and it does it for 4. If you're looking at spending that much mana and you're willing to go a little more, play the Feast instead. Not saying you should play the Feast. You can do better. But I would definitely play that over Soul Shred. Nice. If you've got a chance, try and find out what he actually played, would you? Dread Reaper, when this came out, this felt about right. 6 mana for a 6/5 flyer, came into play, lose 5 life. Not a card I would generally recommend these days. If you're playing Horror Tribal, though, like, you could do a lot worse than this. And if your deck is based around, dropping your own life total for reasons, maybe in order to exchange life total with somebody else later via, I don't know, Magus of the Mirror or what have you, or something else similarly awkward. Sure, it might be a thing that you want. Arrogant Vampire. Again, your benchmark for this. It's hard to say the appropriate benchmark for this would have been Sengir Vampire, because Sengir Vampire was one of only 2 uncommons that people consistently traded like rares. Sengir Vampire and Sarah Angel. Just because they were that damn good. Back when we weren't using the internet to look up pricing, we were basically going off of rarity. And you might get somebody that had a, within the last month price guide to go by. And they were actual magazines that you had to look up. So you actually had to crack open, flip to the right page for the set. Okay, so you're worth this. And you're from this set, so you're not listed. So you would be a uncommon, so that would be whatever. But even so, you look at this, you play, if you're playing blue, which had the worst uncommon, and you had a 4/4 flyer. I mean, I think was Cockatrice uncommon? No, Cockatrice was rare. I wonder. Color equal green. Mana value equal 5. Creature. Thicket Basilisk might have been the uncommon. Yeah. Thicket Basilisk was the uncommon. Two 4s that would kill everything that went up against. I don't know. Unless you're playing cheap But like even if you're playing cheap vampires, because this eventually got shifted back down to uncommon. Or sorry, Sengir Vampire eventually got shifted back down to uncommon. No, just no. Mind Knives, eh. Again, discard not generally a fun deck to play for Commander. Like it's not a deck that people will enjoy playing against. It would be like fun for you, but not for other people. But if you're doing this, isn't there like 1/1s for 2 mana that come into play and make people discard at random? I feel like there is. Um, or you might as well just play him Tutor or something similar. And for an extra black mana, you get Hypnotic Spectre, which was a 2/2 flyer for 2. Whenever it hits somebody, they pitch a random card. Mercenary Knight. This is a synergy piece. 3 mana for 4/4 comes into play. Second, unless you discard a creature card. If you're playing this on 3, you're probably discarding some giant beastie that that on turn 4 you're casting some kind of zombify effect. Or, heaven forbid, you bring back 2 things because you discarded another one earlier. So you get, like, I don't know, Animate Dead and what's the other one? Reanimate or something like that. Alright, let's see what we got here. Copy link. Paste and go. Greenland. 4 bio Troublemaker Roof. Which one are you? Oh, that's cute. Yep. Breathe the Wilds, if it was bargained. Flare Husk. Wait, you can get an artifact, enchantment, or token. Okay, so you can sack the token from there. Damn it. Implement of Ferocity. Put a +1 counter when it's put in a graveyard, draw a card. Malevolent Rumble. Get a card from the top of your deck. Ram through. Rancor. Vessel of Nascency. Yep. Finds the Vastwood. Dark Seas. Yep. Yep. Colony Garden. Yep. 1/2 comes into play, gain 3. Tormod's Crypt, 2 Mass Vandals. Yeah, because you've already got the Troublemakers to play with. Sandstorm is hilarious. Weather the Storm, and one more roof in the sideboard. Okay. Yeah. Played against double combo. What's double combo? Oh, it's like what am I missing? Yeah, I heard about that. I wasn't able to make it this week because I was at Fan Expo in Toronto, so I should be able to make it for my my biggest concern is that I work. So when he's doing Saturdays, I don't generally work Friday night. I work Saturday night and Sunday night, so I go to Friday at a reasonable-ish time, or try to get up for a couple of hours to watch the stream, then go back to bed to be ready for Saturday night. On Sundays, that means I basically have to, because I work Saturday night and Sunday night, and he starts at noon my time, I basically have to come home Sunday morning, maybe grab a quick something to eat, pass out for like 3 hours or so. Probably only like 3 hours. Watch a stream, then go back to bed for another 5 hours or whatever. Then get up and get ready to head to work. So it's going to be harder for me to watch a stream regularly for the next bit. I'm still going to try. It's just going to be harder. Um, but yeah, Mercenary Knight, you are going to find ways to make this work. You know, it's a slightly aggro creature. It's, you know, it's a discard outlet. It's a few things. You just don't want to be having to have this come in play. You don't want somebody flickering this thing on you. Skeletal Snake, it's fine. Uh, Again, you're looking at in this case, a black coral merfolk. And when Innistrad turned around and gave us something with a more relevant creature type and extra point of toughness at the same cost, not worth not worth playing. Again, unless you're playing Snake or Skeleton Tribal, maybe. Vampiric Touch. I think I thought about playing a card like this in my Mono Black Burn deck. I ended up not having to. Um, but I've certainly considered a card like this. Sorry, Mono Black Burn for Pauper, not for not for Commander. If I'm doing it for Commander, I want something that does more than two damage. I'm gonna want at least 3 or 4 as a starting point. And I mean, don't forget, you get to start off with, like, you have Tyrant's Choice available. You've got a lot of stuff that deals 3 damage for like 1 or 2 mana as well. So maybe at some point a mono black burn. Oh, Vampiric Touch? Oh, for sure. And Pauper, don't bother. You know, you're looking at this for Pauper. Tyrant's Choice is so much better. Um, Dread Charge. uh, there is a card, I believe it's called Cower in Fear. Nope, not Cower in Fear. Oh no, Cover of Darkness. As it enters, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type have fear. Can only be blocked. Can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and/or black creatures. Okay. Dread Charge. Black creatures you control. So you have to be playing black. So rather than a creature type, it's black creatures. Can't be blocked this turn except by black creatures. Artifact creatures will not work. So there's an argument that Dread Charge is in certain decks is far superior to Cover of Darkness. Cover of Darkness's big benefit is that it's an enchantment, it stays in play. This is a one shot. However, if you're basically looking at something along the lines of an overrun effect, Dread Charge is going to do a lot for you. And again, only 11 cards, including the Alabaster Dragon we mentioned before. The Ebon Dragon, on the other hand, 7 mana for 5/4 flyer. When it enters, you may have target opponent discard a card. You may have. You can choose not to. You can just have it be a 5/4 flyer for 7, which sounds meh. That should be like 5 mana. At that point, maybe 6. But 7 mana for, an additional mana to a mana and a half for the ability, the option of making somebody discard a card. If I'm playing a dragon deck and I'm playing black, hell, if I'm playing mono black dragons, which feels like a reasonable option these days, maybe you've got Skithiryx as your general. I think Ebon Dragon makes the cut. Hand of Death. Destroy target non-black creature. No. For an extra half a mana and turn it in instant, you get murder. Do not bother with it. You know why you play Hand of Death? You play Hand of Death if you want to make sure that it's not getting redirected elsewhere. Or I should say, not getting redirected to your stuff. If you're concerned about people redirecting your removal spells to your stuff, you play Hand of Death, because chances are you're playing enough black cards to support it. Wicked Pact. This is basically, what do you call it? Reckless Bite. Destroy target 2 target non-black creatures. You lose 5 life. Destroy target non-black creatures. You lose 5 life. Instant versus sorcery. Exile 2 target non-artifact creatures. Deals 5 damage to you. Similar. Exile 2 target non-artifact. Destroy target 2 target non-black. So yeah, there's Wicked Pact, there's Ashes to Ashes, and there's Reckless Bite. And they're all similar. I would say Wicked Pact is a lot closer to Reckless Bite. But if I'm trying to decide between Reckless Bite and, like if I want another Reckless Bite specifically, Wicked Pact is there. But if I'm looking for more flexibility, I think I would go 1 Reckless Bite and 1 Ashes to Ashes. Neither of which are actually wrong. Skeletal Crocodile. Again, this averages to a 3/3 for 4, which is about right. This dies to a sneeze. If you're able to get past the sneeze, on the other hand, this hits for quite a bit. But yeah, I don't know. Skeleton Tribal, pass. Crocodile Tribal, probably have to. Um, would not be happy about it, but probably have to. Bog Raiders. Um, 2/2 Swamp Walk for 3. Yeah. Um, eh? Not amazing. Not horrible. Again, chances are really high somebody's going to have a Nurborg Tomb of Yawgmoth in play. Expect this to get through every turn until it gets killed. This is going to be 2 damage every single turn. Virtue's Ruin, much less common than playing against black or green. Probably have one in your deck just, in a pinch. Because white, while it's not commonly played, I think it's got really, strong card. Like it's like it feels to me like the good cards that it has are really, really good, but it doesn't have a lot of good cards. You know what I'm saying? Like, if white had, let's say, 100, like if every color had 100 cards, you know, white might have like 10 incredible cards. I'm exaggerating, of course, but for the sake of argument, for the sake of example, 10 incredible cards and then 90 that are just meh. Whereas I feel like blacks are like, black would be deeper. It would have more good cards. They might be a little less good each, but they'd go further down. So you might have like say 20 or 20 or 30 cards that people would actually want to play. Same with green. Blue and red. I feel like red would get next largely on the back of dragons. Blue feels to me like the least, like the color people would want to play the least out of the 5. As it's like, by itself. There's certain blue cards that are really, really powerful, but be like, it would kind of like be like, being like dealing with white. You'd have like, half a dozen or so incredibly overpowered cards, and the rest are just, that's fine. Um, Final Strike, 4 mana. Oh, this is cute. Remember what I was saying before about if you've got a whole bunch of extra combat steps, charging bandits gets out of hand? Final Strike gives you a way to kill an opponent. 2 black, 2 other, sorcery, additional cost, sack a creature. Deals damage equal to that creature's power to target opponent or planeswalker. Fling! Dies. Yeah, but Virtue's Ruin, I'd be okay having one floating around somewhere just in case somebody's got a token strategy or something. Nature's Ruin, again, green a lot more powerful, a lot more commonly played in Commander from my perspective than white is. So Nature's Ruin is going to be much better call in general. Final Strike, yeah. Final Strike, use that as a finisher when you got something big that you just, cool. Now that it's done its job, by the way, kill you. Noxious Toad, When it starts, each opponent discards a card. I will point out it's each opponent discards a card and not each player, which makes the fact that it costs 3 mana, not 2 mana, a bit more sense because a lot of the times at 2 mana, it's each player discards a card. Assassin's Blade. Destroy target non-black attacking creature. Again, you have to be the one getting attacked. Again, this does count, this can be done during the end of combat step. Generally at this point, you're looking at things like destroy target tapped creature, which, is it assassinate? Destroy target tapped creature. I wonder. Deathstroke. Wow. Murderous Compulsion. Cheapest way to do it, but the only way to do it at instant speed. Or sorry. Not at instant speed. Wow, I cannot word right now. Let's try this again. What am I looking for? Assassin's Blade. How did Assassin's Blade not come up? Oh, right. Destroy target non-black attacking creature. Yep. Yeah, Murderous Compulsion, you can make an argument for being able to do that at instant speed, as I also just pointed out, because it's got madness. Otherwise, yeah, you're looking at double black or black +2 to destroy target tapped creature. Or roll Assassin / King's Assassin. But again, for like an extra black mana, you can blow up anything. And for the same cost as this, you get to start blowing up a lot of things. You get cast down, you get ultimate price, you get, I'm drawing a blank on names right now, but you do get a lot of options at 2 mana. And once you hit 3 mana, you get Murder and all its variants thereof, Hero's Downfall and what have you. So, not only that, but at 2 mana, you also get your various Edict variants, which don't require a creature to be attacking in the first place. So, meh. Cruel Bargain. Cruel Bargain, if you're looking for a combo deck, these, effects like this are great. I think, is it Inferno Tutor? No, not Inferno Tutor. Inferno Contract. Literally the exact same card. Both of them are like triple black sorcery. Draw 4 cards, lose half your life, rounded up. If you regularly need to draw a bunch of cards in one shot, Cruel Bargain is going to do a lot of work for you. Serpent Assassin. I'm not so fond of like the Serpent Warrior before is okay. Serpent Assassin, the of course it's still a bargain. Uh, Serpent Assassin's been outclassed, unfortunately, by basically anytime you see Necrotal, like Necrotal, I would say outclasses this. The current version that I can think of is Ravenous Chupacabra. And I don't think Ravenous Chupacabra cares anything about what the creature is. Destroy target creature and opponent controls. This has the potential ability to kill one of your own creatures, but realistically, 98% of the time, you're killing your opponent's stuff. Play the Chupacabra. It's the same size, it's one less mana. You play this if you're worried about it getting redirected to one of your own things. Rain of Tears, destroy target land. It's Sinkhole for an extra mana, or it's a it's a simplified Choking Sands. It's a this is basically where they say they want land destruction, but they don't really want land destruction cheap. I find that land destruction and countering spells. Before I go down too far down that rabbit hole, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna have to get through the rest of this fairly quickly. Um, I've generally found that land destruction and counter spells are they want to cost them at what they were back during in like alpha, beta, unlimited, revised, etc. So in other words, counterspell at 2 blue feels appropriately costed. Land destruction at double black or red plus 2 feels appropriately costed. The problem is they generally feel those effects are too powerful for standard, which is why we got counterspell in one of the modern master sets. This has been a problem they've had for quite a while. So they will often print what I'll say cancel with upside. They will give us, for 2 blue, because they don't want to give us counterspell per se. But for an extra mana over counterspell, they'll give us something. They'll give us 3 steps ahead. They'll give us dissipate. They will give us, counter target spell and scry. They will give us disallow. They'll give us counter target spell plus something. If they give us land destruction, it's not going to be 3 mana. It's going to be 4 mana, 5 mana, 6 mana. But there'll be something appropriate to attach it to. So we may have like a 5 mana, 3/3 or 4/4 creature that when it comes into play blows up a thing. But blows up land, but then they get a land back to compensate or something. But it always feels like it's proper. They still consider those cards properly balanced, but too strong at that cost. So what can we actually give them? Reign of Tears feels like they didn't want to give us Sinkhole. They didn't want to give us a Blackstone Rain. They gave us this, but then you get this was 1997. 5 years later we get Rancid Earth, because Reign of Tears was fine. But 5 years later, we got this, which gave us, which was the exact same card, but with an additional bonus once you hit 7 lands, or 7 cards in your graveyard. So, it's a decent card. Honestly, like if I'm considering playing a Reign of Tears, my problem with Reign of Tears isn't with Reign of Tears. My problem with Reign of Tears is I want to be able to do more. If I'm playing land destruction specifically, I want Rancid Earth, I want Icequake, I want Choking Sands, I want something else. But at an extra mana, I start getting additional flexibility. Red, start off with Stone Rain for a slightly more difficult cost. Instead of red plus 2, I get 2 red plus 1. I get Pillage. And for an extra mana over that, I get Aftershock.